Hello fellow modelers, welcome to the first part of the Italeri 148 scale build of the Sea Hurricane. The Sea Hurricanes or Hurricats were the sea-going cousins of the iconic Hawker Hurricane. Well, without wasting any time, let me show you what I found inside the box. Let's start with the instructions. By the way, this is my first Italeri kit and I was very happy to see this booklet type instruction manual. Nicely printed and with detailed illustrations. The build looks to be fairly elaborate, and there is even an optional engine. There are 6 color schemes to pick from. 5 of them are from Operation Pedestal, the resupply of Malta in August of 1942. It was a heroic mission in which 50 Allied ships fought their way through an Axis siege to provide much required supplies to the island, which is just south of Italy. The decal sheet is reasonably detailed and in good register. There are 2 options for the cockpit instrument panel. One I believe is to be used alone, while the other with the photo-etched panel. The photo-etched part itself is tiny, with a cockpit harness, the cockpit instrument panel, and some handles that go on the canopy. Now let's take a look at the plastic sprues. These are by and large crisp and flash free. The detail work is superb, especially on the engine. The kit has recessed panel lines and excellent detail. There is some minor flash here and there, but nothing too serious. Right then, let's start the build by cutting away the photo-etched seat belts. The photo-etched sheet is rather thick and stiff. I also cut, cleaned and glued the plastic cockpit parts. And sure enough, here's our first problem. The photo-etch harness is too big for the seat. It took several minutes of pulling and bending before I could glue the harness on the seat. This was made more difficult given that the photo-etch is rather stiff and rigid. Anyway, with that out of the way, I glued all the cockpit parts together. I think that looks good. I also cut and cleaned all the parts from the engine cowling and cradle that are to be painted the same interior green as the cockpit. The engine cowling has 3 rather prominent injector pin marks in it. Since I will keep the engine open, I will have to remove these. I have this special sanding tool, which is ideal for getting into hard to sand places like these. Here's another tool that I often use. It's a hand drill. This one is used by nail artists to shape nails and is ideal for use in situations such as this one. It's not as big and powerful as a proper Dremel hand drill, rather it is easier to maneuver and more gentle on the surface to be sanded. There we go, all marks gone. Right, time to give all the pieces a black base. This black paint, which is Tamiya Flat Black, not only acts as a primer but will also provide natural shadows when we apply the green paint. Painting a black base for natural shadows is also called applying a shadow base or applying shadow paint. Now that the black base has dried, it's time to apply the cockpit green. I am using Vallejo Air's pale green this time. I apply thin light layers so that I don't flood the paint and lose all the black shadows. I apply multiple light layers rather than one thick one. This, as most modelers will tell you, is a better way to airbrush paint as it gives you ample control over the effect you achieve. Also, one of the worst things you can do while airbrushing is to flood the part with paint and lose not only the shadow base but also details on the part. It's time to take a fine brush and start painting the details in the cockpit. Here, I'm using a light grey for the seat belts. I also apply light leather brown on the headrest. I want the cockpit to look well used and weathered, so I use some aluminium paint and a fine brush to add some chipping to the cockpit area. Once the paint dried, I applied a couple of layers of Future on the parts to seal everything in. This is very important before we can move to the next step, which is using a panel line wash. The wash will add more weathering to the cockpit. First, I apply the wash liberally all over the parts. Once it's dry, I use a fine brush and some turpentine to gently remove it. I often use an earbud or a Q-tip to do this. But since the cockpit parts are delicate and rather hard to reach, I'm using a brush. That's the cockpit done. Well, that's all we have time for today, fellow modelers. Thanks for watching, and be sure to catch the next part as well. Apart from other things, we will have a go at the engine then. Thanks once again, and good luck modeling.